Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this conference organized by BEBA. This conference will discuss the potential for British-Egyptian partnership in the field of agriculture and agricultural manufacturing in Africa, which largely falls under the promotion of sustainable manufacturing. The conference is a follow-up to the conference Egypt, a Hub for Trade and Investment in Africa, held January of last year in the UK on the sidelines of the UK-Africa Investment Summit. I believe the topic of the conference is very timely, given the UK's exit from the European Union, the signing into force of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Agriculture and manufacturing are two of the most important economic activities in Africa, yet their full potential remains untapped. This conference offers the chance for private sector companies to find practical solutions in the cooperation between UK, Egypt, and Africa. On behalf of BEBA, I am pleased to welcome the following speakers to the opening session. Mr. Ibrahim Sigini, Assistant Minister of Trade and Industry of Egypt, representing Her Excellency Dr. Naveen Gama, Minister of Trade and Industry, who unfortunately had to go on an official visit abroad, so couldn't join us today. Mrs. Emma Wade Smith, Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Africa, and a long friend for BEBA and the EBBC. Mr. Wamkeli Mene, Secretary General, African Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat. And of course, Mr. Ahmed El-Swedi, President CEO of El-Swedi Electric and one of the biggest investors. Last but not least, my dear friend, Ian Gray, OBE, Chairman of the EBBC. We greatly value our sponsors' support. I'd like to recognize and thank the Cairo Regional Center for International Commercial Arbitration and the Export Credit Guarantee Egypt. I'd like also to thank the Egyptian Exporters Association, ExpoLink, for providing assistance in the planning of this conference. I will now leave the floor to Mr. Ian Gray, Chairman of EBBC, who will lead the session and the discussion. Thank you.
Khaled, thank you very much for the introduction. And from me, thank you to all of those who are going to participate this morning. We're going to run through with some opening remarks from our panel members. There is a Q&A at the bottom of your screens that you can start to ask questions all the way through. After the introductory remarks, we will be having an interactive discussion with Emma Wade Smith representing the UK government in this. And I'm particularly pleased also that we do have Ahmed El-Swedi coming, because if I may, Ahmed, I do want to just say I think what you have done with El-Swedi Electric is a role model, not just for companies in Egypt, but for British companies looking at Egypt and looking to be able to develop beyond. And I think Emma would reinforce the fact that from a UK point of view, I hope I'm not stealing your script at this point, in terms of Egypt being a great gateway for UK businesses looking into what else is possible in Africa. And of course, Egypt's also got the great relationships and agreements in place through into the GCC. If I may, I'd like to kick off by inviting some comments from effectively from the Egyptian government. Mr. Skinny, I'm going to come to you, and then we'll follow that with some introductory remarks from the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. I'm checking my words to get the thing right. And Wamkeli Mene is with us today, and clearly the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is very important for Egypt and its relationship across the rest of Africa. So, Mr. Sigeni, if you're there, we would like to hear from you, please, Your Excellency.
Yes.
We can now see you and we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Okay. Excellencies and partners and ladies and gentlemen, in behalf of Her Excellency Niveen Gami, Minister of Trade and Industry, and myself, okay, I can start, yes? Okay.
Please.
I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Egyptian British Chamber of Commerce and the British Egyptian Business Association for organizing this conference, UK-Egypt partnership for the promotion of sustainable manufacture in Africa. I would also like to thank Her Majesty Emma Ward-Smith, the Trade Commissioner to Africa, and His Excellency Wampili, the Secretary General of African Continental Free Trade, for their presence. In this important virtual conference, I am very pleased to see so many important organizations and high-level representation here today. A warm welcome to you all. This event comes in such timely manner with the start of trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area, one of the largest trading blocs in the world. On 1 January 2021, this coincident with the entry into force of the association agreement between Egypt and the United Kingdom after Brexit. Egypt and the UK have well-established relations in different fields, including trade and investment. The relations are based on cooperation and mutual understanding of changing global issues. Signature and entry into force the Egypt-UK Association Agreement asserts our strong will continue and maintain the strong relation between the both sides. Let me also stress Egypt's commitment to the function of the African Continental Free Trade Area to achieve its objectives of enhancing inter-African trade, providing job opportunities in addition to attracting investment to the African countries, and realization of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Egypt is keen to enhance the commercial and the industrial integration with the African continent and to open new markets, promote Egyptian exports and enhance its actual presence through the creating a continental market for goods and service with more than 1 billion people and $3 trillion US gross domestic product. Negotiation for concluding the agreement in Africa began in 2016, during which many meetings were held, starting from the technical level up to the ministerial level to finalize the legal text, as well as the obligations arising from to date. 36 member states have ratified the agreement, and 41 schedule of tariff concession and 34 schedules of specific commitment have been submitted. CEFTA has entered into force in 30 May 2019. The preferential trade under agreement commenced on January 2021. in line with the decision and the declaration adopted during 13th extraordinary session of Assembly of the Union of 5 December 2021. Egypt, represented in the Ministry of Trade and Industry in the cooperation with all concerned parties, was among the first members to present its offer to tariff reductions as well as specific commitment in 5 service sectors, namely transport, tourism, telecommunication, business, and financial services. Our priority is to finalize all negotiating issues, whether outstanding from the first phase or the second one, comprising competition, investment, and IPR, and lastly, the third phase of negotiation concerning e-commerce as per the guidance of African heads of state in response to the coronavirus pandemic. As practical matter, low tariff rates are not sole driver of the business decision. The profitability of any endeavor depends on the many factors, commercial and otherwise. The TEFTA value proposition lies on the benefits it offers to enhance long-term value creation for goods and services to be traded in the new market. The context of our agreement introducing wide array of initiatives and operational tools aimed at smoothing the flow of inter-Africa trade, overcoming obstacles related to transport and shipping and financial transactions and non-tariff measure. Moreover, other initiatives resulting from the agreement aimed to boost its operation, targeting more transparency to the business community with regard to investment and trade data. The CEFTA is landmark achievement in the content's history of regional integration and is exposed to granted significant gains. However, it is the road of origin upon finalizing its negotiations that will determine whether preferential trade liberalization under CEFTA can be a game changer for African industrialization. For accessibility purposes, an online inter-Africa trade platform serving as a repository for roles of origin in multiple local language would be created. Ladies and gentlemen, with 6 out of 10 fastest growing economy in the world and 1 billion customers and growing African, surely will be playing a major and growing role in the global economy in the decade to come. The African continent is an attractive to foreign investment. Economies in Africa offer many remarkable opportunities, for example, in the energy, agri-industries, and oil and gas, and infrastructures. Ladies and gentlemen, rising global industry and logistical hub in Suez zone will avail logistical facilities to create regional value chains across the continent and hopefully become manufacturing and exporting base for the African commodities and raw material leveraging nominal transportation and labor costs. Moreover, the Silk Road economy belt will lend credentials to Egypt, a new Suez Canal economy corridor. Additionally, Egypt has all the sources of energy, modern infrastructure, new road network, efficient port and airports, as well as a new cities and low labor costs. It is clear that the continuity of the salt trade and investment partnership between Egypt and the UK will allow the British investors to continue making the best use of the inviting Egyptian business environment and the opportunities provided by the African continental trade area. In conclusion, thank you all for participation and wish you a very successful conference. Thank you.
Mr. Segeni, thank you so much for that introduction. And I think on behalf of all the people in the UK sitting over here, so often one thinks of Egypt as being part of the Middle East. And thank you for emphasizing that Egypt is also sitting in Africa. It's one of the reasons why we see it so much as potentially a gateway. And clearly, one of the foundations to being able to trade across Africa and using Egypt as a gateway is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And we are very pleased today that we have His Excellency Wamkeli Mene with us. And Wamkeli, if I may, can I turn to you next to give us your perspective and an introduction from where you're sitting. So thank you for coming.
Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to this session today. It's a pleasure to join this distinguished panel. I think that His Excellency Mr. Segeni gave a very comprehensive overview of the state of play and the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And so I won't go into too much detail about that. Let me just make a few points, if I may, because I have been given only 10 minutes. The first point to make is that this is truly remarkable that Africa has, for the first time, a single rule book for trade and investment on the African continent, and that is the African Continental Free Trade Area, which has been ratified by 36 countries. And I expect that by the middle of the year, 5 or 6 more countries will ratify this agreement. And it is really very encouraging because it demonstrates that Africa, the heads of states on the African continent, have a very, very strong commitment to trade liberalization, to reducing barriers to investment, to intra-Africa investment, and of course, more importantly, to improving Africa's industrial development capacity. One of the reasons why we say that this agreement is potentially a game changer is because of the impact that it may have on Africa's industrial development capacity. As you know, intra-Africa trade is very, very low. It is at around 18%. And second, Africa exports, for the most part, Africa exports primary commodities to countries of the north. And this is not good for anybody on the African continent, and it certainly is not good for the future of the African continent. We now have an opportunity through the African Continental Free Trade Area to significantly enhance Africa's productive capacity by doing a number of things, but primarily the establishment of regional value chains, the establishment and encouraging investment in Africa's productive sectors. Mr. Segeni mentioned a few potential sectors for productive investment that will boost manufacturing in Africa, agro-processing, as well as the automobile sector, are some of the sectors that are very much manufacturing intensive, labor intensive, and of course have an impact, a very positive impact on an economy's industrial development capacity. If you look at Article 3 of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, it's very, very clear that we have, in a few years' time, we have to rapidly expand Africa's industrial capacity. We have to ensure that we leverage on linkages in value chains across the region. I have mentioned a few: agro-processing, automobiles, and now, of course, in light of COVID-19, public health is an issue that is at the fore. Even there is a linkage between public health and industrial development and manufacturing capacity. We know that there is at the moment a very severe crisis in relation to access to vaccines. Many African countries do not have the requisite number of vaccines that they require, and there are myriad reasons for that. But for the purposes of our discussion today, one of the reasons why Africa is confronted with this challenge of access to vaccines is because of a shallow industrial capacity and manufacturing capacity. We now, through this African Continental Free Trade Area, we have an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to ensure that we have an intellectual property rights regime that not only is at the service of Africa's public health imperatives, but also an intellectual property rights regime that will be at the service of Africa's manufacturing capacity and Africa's industrial development objectives through the establishment of regional value chains on pharmaceuticals, the establishment of a generic drug industry on the African continent. These are absolutely key priorities in the aftermath of the pandemic. Let me conclude my brief remarks by reminding all of us why we negotiated this agreement. I mentioned earlier that intra-Africa trade is very, very low, but most importantly, we want a rules of origin regime in the agreement. We want a rules of origin regime that fosters industrial development on the African continent and that fosters manufacturing capacity on the African continent. That is why when you look at the threshold for value addition for originating products in the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is very, very high. Our rules of origin regime is very robust, very demanding, because we want to foster industrial development and manufacturing capacity on the African continent. The World Bank has estimated that by the year 2035, if we implement this agreement effectively as Africans, we have an opportunity to lift 100 million people out of poverty. And I believe that the bulk of that number of people being lifted out of poverty will be on the back of manufacturing jobs and will be on the back of Africa's industrial development on a range of different sectors. Some of them I've mentioned this morning. So once again, thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you all the best in your deliberations this morning. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for those words and that introduction. I'm interested in your emphasis of heading into a new world where the rules of origin regime is clear. It's one of the things that British businesses have been going up the learning curve on, because clearly following our departure from the EU, some of the things people have taken for granted and trading there, rules of origin, are now actually a critical issue in terms of products that can be prepared in the UK. But the UK is primarily, or not primarily, but we are very much a service business, providing sort of information, advice, and things. And I'm sure there are going to be lots of opportunities as Africa develops for British businesses. And I think with the potential scale of the African market and the African economy going forward, I think I'm going to turn to you, Emma Wade-Smith, because taking up your role, first of all as a Trade Commissioner, now as Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for all of Africa, I suspect you must have some colleagues who are into, how did you know it was going to be such a great place to be with all of these opportunities? So if I may, if we could turn to you for your perspective on perhaps sort of business in Africa, and maybe even say a few words about what's happened from a UK perspective since that great Africa Investment Summit a year ago. Thank you.
Great. Ian, thank you so much. And I think you're absolutely right. Amongst all of the 9 trade commissioners across the world, I am absolutely clear that I have by far the best, most interesting, most exciting job of all. And Africa is where, if you're not already, people should be. I'm very clear on that. I just wanted to start off and thanks to BEBA, thanks to EBBC for arranging today's event, because it's another in a series of really important opportunities to bring people together, to really address the sort of question around awareness of opportunities, awareness of the reality of what is happening in Egypt, and I think across Africa as a whole. And not everyone has the opportunity to see that up close and personal. So it's really great to have this opportunity to share our experiences on the continent. I'm going to talk just a little bit about what my team does in Africa, so representing the UK's Department for International Trade across the African continent. In terms of our trade policy, so what have we been doing in the run-up to the EU, to the departure from the EU, and what do we expect for the future, including through the AfCFTA. And then what does that actually mean in real terms? Because all of this wonderful trade policy work really is directed towards unleashing new opportunities and new prospects for trade and investment, both within Africa and between Africa and the world. And in my case, obviously, I'm most interested in how we do that with the United Kingdom. So of course, I think we all know, we all understand that the COVID-19 has had a pretty dramatic economic impact across the globe, continues to do so. And thinking about this from an Egypt perspective, prior to basically a year ago, 13 months ago, we would have been sitting here saying Egypt was an exciting economic prospect because it was predicted to be growing at north of 5% annually in terms of economic GDP, and I think that has been part of the attraction for UK companies working with Egyptian companies. The good news is that the World Bank is predicting that Egypt and a number of other economies will bounce back this year. So we're hopeful to see some more positive economic growth. But I think a really fascinating thing is that Egypt, along again with just a sort of a handful or two of other countries around the world, has continued to see positive economic growth over the last year, despite the challenges of COVID. And I think for me, that speaks to the vibrancy and the resilience of the UK-Egypt trade and investment relationship. And we're excited to see how we continue to build that over the years ahead. So when I think about what we do as the Department for International Trade representing the UK in Egypt, across Africa, we're looking to see how do we create the most conducive environment for trade and investment to enable more companies to do what they do best, create and sustain jobs, make some money and create more prosperity for all of us. And we do that by looking at the overall trading arrangements, both globally, regionally and bilaterally, and thinking about how do we tackle some of those barriers to doing business, the market access barriers, the business environment challenges, and working government to government and government to business to understand what it is that's constraining that growth of business, and doing what we can to tackle those barriers and make it a more conducive environment. And as I mentioned earlier, really we're doing this because ultimately all of us, for our shared prosperity, stability, security, all of us need to be creating jobs and sustaining meaningful jobs for our people. So just very briefly then, thinking about what happened on the 1st of January in an African context, we've heard particularly from Wankele there about the African Continental Free Trade Area coming into being for the first time, and a really exciting moment for Africa to embrace its prospects, to grow industrially, agriculturally, economically. Coincidentally, on that very same day, the UK finally transitioned out of the European Union. We left the customs union and the single market, and our independent trading relationships started clearly from that 1st of January moment. Now, we think that that has given us, for the first time in a number of decades, an ability to set our own trade policy, to really reinforce our global free trading ambitions through the WTO, as well as through the different trade agreements that we have in place. And so in an African context, I'm actually so proud of what the team has done. From a UK perspective, we have managed to secure the continuation of preferential trading arrangements with 46 African countries. And within that, we have agreed the transition of 9 trade agreements covering 16 countries in Africa. So that includes the East and Southern African countries, Southern African Customs Union and Mozambique, Kenya, Morocco, Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Cameroon, and of course, in this context, Egypt. And I'm so excited, so proud of the teams on both sides, on the Egyptian side and the UK side, for all the extraordinary determination and effort that went into making sure that we could transition that association agreement in time to go live on the 1st of January. And critically, I think that demonstrates our shared commitment to creating the most conducive environment to continue to build our trade and investment relationship. And so that is absolutely critical. And it also made sure that we had continuity for all of our businesses operating together, trading and investing between Egypt and the UK. So continuity of those preferential trading arrangements, which I think provided the sort of certainty for companies to just keep going. Now, I think that creates that certainty for the years ahead. We're keen to think about how do we now implement that agreement fully and effectively? How do we ensure that more companies are aware of what the preferential trading arrangements are? And how do we then build for the future? How do we build on top of the arrangements we've now transitioned and create even more opportunity and prospects for our companies to do more? And within that context, I see some really exciting opportunities across Egypt that really chime with UK capability and expertise in sectors like sustainable infrastructure. And we've seen the fabulous launching of the monorail projects in Cairo, New Cairo, as part of that great partnership that we can see. Energy, and particularly renewable energy. And with Egypt being such a regional energy hub, I think there are of fascinating prospects there as in support of green economic growth. I think agriculture and agri-tech in particular are absolutely fundamental, not just for creating jobs, but for building food and water security and enabling us to transition to more sustainable economies for the future. I've mentioned green a few times. I do really feel that sort of the green economic recovery is right at the heart of where Egypt and the UK can be working together, and underpinned always, of course, by financial and professional services. I haven't even mentioned education and healthcare, two really essential sectors for continued investment and continued growth over the years ahead. And I think particularly in the education space, we've got an array of fabulous partnerships already between Egyptian and UK organisations and institutions, really promoting lifelong learning and skills provision. Turning very briefly to the African Continental Free Trade Area, I do want to just, I'm not going to repeat what's already been said, but just to say that the UK is really, really excited about the prospects of the AfCFTA, what that means for African companies in terms of industrialisation and greater trade across Africa. It's also a really exciting prospect for international companies. And certainly when I talk to UK companies about what the AfCFTA could mean, there's a definite a frisson of excitement that generates when we think about easier access across 1.3 billion people and growing and increasingly industrialized, increasingly living in cities, increasingly prosperous consumers looking to both create and share more goods and services across the continent. So the UK is a firm supporter of generating that possibility through the AfCFTA. We've been helping with some technical assistance, and we've set up a new team in Accra to work with Wamkele and his team there in the Secretariat to really see how together we can maximise the opportunities and the effect of that trade policy. Briefly then, just to conclude, to look specifically at trade and investment, really all of that trade policy stuff is around turbocharging our trade and investment opportunities, with job creation right at the very heart of it. Trade between the UK and Africa over the last 12 months has understandably been a bit disrupted by COVID, but I am confident that we will recover quickly. We'll get back into the swing of things this year. So probably around a 20% drop in our trade over the last 12 months, but still sitting at around 28 billion UK pounds worth. And in terms of investment, we estimate that there's over 50 billion pounds of UK investment stock sitting in Africa. Of that 28 billion pounds of trade between Africa and the UK, we think that nearly 3 billion pounds of that is between Egypt and the UK. It's down a little bit, not 20% at all. It's down probably by around 9% year on year. But it keeps Egypt as the UK's 50th largest trading partner in the world, and certainly our third largest export market in Africa. And over the last decade, we've seen UK companies investing over 40 billion pounds in Egypt, with a big chunk of that actually through substantial investments by the likes of BP and Shell into energy, to really support Egypt's ambitions and realisation of being a regional energy hub. So Ian, you mentioned the UK Africa Investment Summit. So that took place about 15 months ago with its anniversary successor event in January this year. So roll back 15 months and we were able to announce over 15 billion UK pounds worth of investment deals and commitments on the day, all new, all very real commitments. And over 3 billion pounds of that 15 billion pounds was actually earmarked for Egypt. So both through that sort of flagship monorail project that I mentioned earlier, but also support for the aviation industry, support for retail through UK companies like Matalan opening up new retail office space or outlets, sorry, and GSK upgrading some of its production lines in Egypt. So real, meaningful, job-sustaining, job-creating opportunities through that Africa Investment Summit. And the wonderful thing for me is that, you know, all of those deals have stayed alive and have progressed over the course of the last 15 months, despite the challenging environment. What we've also been doing since that first investment summit over a year ago is supporting the connectivity between African companies looking for investment and UK investors looking for great opportunities. And so we've been working through a UK company called Asoko Insight, and we have an online deal room platform through them, which is scrubbing opportunities and connecting investment opportunities with investors. And so far we've managed to connect over £550 million worth of investment deals through that platform, and we're still going strong. And I'd really like to see more Egyptian deals coming through on that platform. So look, despite the challenges, you know, I really do see that there are some fantastic opportunities, and I have trade and investment experts in over 20 African countries, including one of our biggest teams on the continent in Egypt. To help with that. We've also reinvigorated our single point of entry. So all inquiries about doing business in Africa can come through a single email address, through an enhanced team, really providing market entry, route to market advice for UK companies, particularly SMEs, where we can see a really exciting tale of companies looking to come into Africa. We've also, of course, got UK Export Finance, and we've been reinforcing their presence on the ground, including, fingers crossed, in just a few weeks' time, we will have a brand new UK Export Finance expert located in Egypt to really help us maximise the ability to connect African buyers to UK suppliers and provide financing for exports through their market risk appetite work. And we also have local currency financing capability in Egypt, which I think also helps to just reduce some of the challenges, the risks associated with doing business together. Now, we already have over 1,500 British businesses registered in Egypt across a wide range of sectors, including household names like Vodafone, BP, Shell, Actis, G4S, Unilever, AstraZeneca and GSK. And through the pandemic, we've worked so closely together, and I think it's really helped to demonstrate our shared commitment to one another and the opportunities that we see for future collaboration. As I mentioned, energy, infrastructure, education, ICT, financial and professional services, healthcare, as just a few. So to finish then, let me just say, if you haven't got the message already, the UK is absolutely committed to increasing the value of trade and investment between Africa and the UK, and in this instance between Egypt and the UK. I think we see each other as partners in our business and commercial opportunities, and indeed sometimes it feels more like family than business, and I think that is a really good thing. Doing business together is a win-win situation, creating the best possible environment for our companies to do more business together and bring more and varied quality goods and services into each other's lives. That is where we want to be. So it's absolutely terrific to work so closely with BEBA and EBBC in this enormous project that we share. There is definitely more than enough for all of us to keep us very, very busy indeed. So it is great to have such good partners to work with. So on that note, let me pause and I look forward to the conversation to come. Thank you.
Emma, thank you very much, and we are grateful not just to you but for your team in Cairo. The DIT team in Cairo are a very easy bunch to deal with, and the door is always open, I think, for all British businesses. And there were a couple of things that you mentioned there in terms of the role of Department of Trade in trying to encourage trade in Africa and trying to reduce barriers and making things easier for businesses. But despite none of that happening, there is a company that I think a lot of people don't know very much about outside Egypt, which has actually managed to grow in a lot of places without a lot of government help. And I'm going to turn to you now, Ahmed El Suwaidi, and if you can tell us a little bit about Suwaidi Electric, because you have the major investments in places like Algeria. I think Emma's comment about, or I think it was when Kelly's comment, sort of moving. I'm going to check my notes. The growth of the economy in Africa, meaning people going to cities, means that cities need street lights need cables, and Suwaidi Electric actually have done that in Ghana. So Ahmed, are you there? Because I saw you earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Ayn. Engineer Ahmed will join in a minute. I'll just share the presentation he's going to do. Right. Just a minute here. So you can see the presentation, right?
We can see the presentation.
All right. Engineer Ahmed will join in a second. Just a second, right?
Right. Okay. That will be good. Whilst we're waiting for Ahmed to join us, can I turn back to you again, Emma, if I may? Because one of the questions that came through was related to whether, in fact, there are, does UK intend, are there any particular countries that are higher up the priority list? I mean, you are, I would remind you, you are on an Egyptian conference today, which is a rather leading way of trying to ask the question.
Well, Ian, funnily enough, Egypt is very high on our list of priorities for Africa, and very seriously so, actually. You can see we've got up to £1 billion worth of UK export finance market risk appetite for Egypt. We've got a good, healthy pipeline of deals that companies are working on together. We can see that we've got some fantastic investments over the last decade from really terrific UK companies doing great things in the country. And I think the direction of travel that the government itself has set in Egypt really chimes very well with UK expertise, capability and interest. So it's no surprise that our green economy focus works really well when we're partnering with Egypt. We saw Egypt go and explore its own green bonds a few months ago as part of their own ambitions to create a green economic recovery. So I think that there are really great prospects here. For us, when I look across Africa, including through an Egypt lens, I see rebuilding more sustainably, more inclusively, cleaner, greener, right at the very heart of where I think that sweet spot is. So when you look at infrastructure, this is about how do we bring expertise and products together to create physical infrastructure that reduces the amount of embedded carbon in our economies, for example. And the monorail project for Cairo is a really great example of that. When we're looking at agriculture, and we're looking at how do we bring technology in to reduce water consumption and increase harvest yields. It's all about more sustainable, more resilient economies. So that's exactly the kind of thing where I think that Egypt and the UK can really be investing in together and partnering for the future.
Okay, so thank you. I hope that's a very full answer. I hope that answers the question. And I don't know, it may actually, if we look at the Suwaidi Electric website, it is full of sustainable manufacturing. So Ahmed, are you with us now?
I'm sorry, he's engaged in the call, but he's joining in a minute. I can happily answer if you have any questions for Suwaidi.
Well, no. We'll take another question from the floor then, as it were, where Mohammed El Saban, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Maz Capital, has got a question. I think what he's asking, Emma, is there anything? I think it's. I'm interpreting his question now. You know, fine, there's a development program between UK and Egypt, but what more can be done in terms of in that space, in particular looking at Egyptian SMEs? And I'm sure this is driven by my experience of Egypt is it is a country of entrepreneurs. And one of the challenges of talking to business is that it is so fragmented. And the people who want to talk to Egyptian businesses are the SMEs in the UK. And again, it's very fragmented. So finding ways, and it's one of the things we try and do as the Chamber or as BEBA in Cairo, we try and find ways to put the right people in touch. And it's not easy. But from a DIT perspective, you must see this across Africa. Is there anything in particular that you're doing, and in particular is there anything more on the sort of, is it where the British value chain and financing can do more for SMEs?
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right. You know, if you look at where job creation comes from, if you look at you know, where the largest part of our economies are, it's SMEs, right? And so we need to be able to find ways to connect them to the bigger projects, to find ways to connect them to distributors. So we do that in DIT through our market entry team, which provides a Pan-African service to SMEs. It's primarily directed towards UK SMEs looking for opportunities, looking to understand what are those big projects that they can be part of. We also do sort of trade missions, and we do supplier fairs to sort of, you know, provide a bit more information about the opportunities. But for African SMEs, you know, we're also here to help. And so, you know, it's really about finding the right partners. And so for African SMEs on this call, please do drop us a line as well, and we'll do our very best to connect you to viable partners. And just before we hand over to Ahmed, so the single email address that anybody needs to know to do business in Africa is dit.africa@fcdo.gov.uk. And if we can't help directly, we'll point you in the direction of someone that we think can. Thanks.
Emma, thank you for that. Ahmed, thank you. It's some of the things that Emma was touching on just there and answering that question about participating. A lot of El Saudi Electric activity is where you're working in partnership and on the power stations, maybe with Siemens, or you know, there are other things where you've got involved. So I've seen your business as being a business that many British companies should know more about and admire. So if you could tell us a little bit about it, and then you know we can see what else we can learn from you, and maybe even Emma and her team will find more things that to help you do more with the UK. So Ahmed, over to you for your presentation, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you much. I'm Ahmed Swedi, President and CEO of Swedi Electric. I hope that you see our presentation or not.
Yes, we can see it fine. Thank you.
Okay. We work mainly in infrastructure. We began as a cable company since over 30 years. And now in the last 10 years, we have changed our business sectors in the group. We work in infrastructure, manufacturing in more than 20 countries worldwide, manufacturing cable, transformers, meters, electrical things, also transformers, also like smart metering. We have the biggest company for producing smart metering in Slovenia, exporting to over 100 countries. We work a lot in Finland, Sweden, UK, France, Italy, and mainly in the smart business. Also, we work in infrastructure by putting power stations, water. We are now building a lot of desalination waters. Also, the same thing, we do transmission lines, we distribution, water, even water for sewage, water for main water for the countries. The same thing we do digital. We are doing also the main ITS, Intelligent Transportation System of Egypt, in a company in Swedish called Swedish Technology, by focusing a lot on the data centers, technology, fiber optics, communication, and the intelligence of the smart. We do also a lot of investment in power, in water. We have power stations in Greece, in Egypt, with partnership with ADF. We're expanding a lot in investing in power. And at the same thing, we have a lot over 25 million meters of industrial cities. We do a lot in industrial cities, which you'll see. This is where our presence worldwide. Also, we have investments in Indonesia, in Pakistan. We are big industrials in Indonesia, Pakistan. We are over 20,000 employees. We have a revenue around $3.5 billion per year, which is expected this year. I believe very much, we manufacture in more than 20 countries. Because I'm Egyptian, I believe very much in two things: manufacturing in Egypt. Egypt is a very good base for manufacturing. We export over 70% of our production, mainly to Europe, mainly to Africa and the Gulf. Our biggest market after Egypt to our goods is UK. Most of our cables is exported to UK and transformers. And we are happy that UK is one of our biggest markets. The same thing, Egypt, it's easy to ship from Egypt to Africa, to Europe, and to the Gulf in less than 3-4 days. The same thing, we have trade agreement with Europe, the same thing with the COMESA, the same with the Arab countries. So we are free to go whenever you want. What happened in Egypt? We have huge investments happened in the last years, especially in the roads. What happened in the roads in Egypt is unbelievable. Nobody can dream really what happened in the roads. In the roads, if you came to Egypt and to see what happened in the roads in the last 5 years, it is a miracle. Even we Egyptians, we cannot believe it. If you want to see what happened, the same thing in power generation, we didn't have any power in Egypt. Electricity was cut off 3-4 hours per day in each house. Now we have excess capacity and we are very much satisfied, and we are thinking how to Egypt export electricity. Railway network, investments in railway is amazing for the next 5 years. Communication, internet, all these things. Consumer, we have over 110 people living in Egypt. So it's a huge market. Suez Canal also is a big support. Ports, there's around 6 ports under construction to make really Egypt the hub for the ports in the region. The airport the same. So I believe Egypt, we have the land. Land is very cheap. We have electricity, we have water, we have people. We are investing even as a company, at the CSR, in STA, which is a huge investing in the vocational training. Because we believe to produce a perfect product, you must have a good labor. To have a good technician, we must have our own schools to educate the vocational training. We are focusing on this at the CSR, and we believe this. We have over 2,000 students, and we are expanding in this business. Yeah, this is one of our industrial cities that we have. It's really on the level of European ones, and we have around 4 or 5 cities like this one. We call it industrial park, which is really industrial development. We believe very much this is one of our key things for the investments for Egypt. Why Egypt? Yeah, and we'll see now a small video about industrial. Plus, we are investing a lot also in Africa. But the cost of manufacturing in Africa is not easy. So mainly we focus in Africa on infrastructure, water, electricity, distribution, and so on. This is a small video we'll see about our investments. Well. And really, we are happy that we continue on investing in these places, Egypt, Africa, and many others. And we are happy to be part of investing also, or attracting investors from UK and supporting their investments in Egypt or supporting their investments in Africa. We are dealing in a lot of things, not only in electricity, but a lot of things which we can help. We have also cement factories, we have steel factories. We are working in education. Well, by the way, we have the biggest British university in Egypt. It's called Knowledge Hub. It's partnership with a university called Coventry in UK. Making great success in Egypt in partnership with Coventry. We began with 300 students, then we reached around 1,000. I think this we will reach this year exceeding 2,000 students. We are very happy and honored with this partnership and expanding in education in Egypt and in Africa. So there's a lot of things to partner with British companies, and we are happy that we as a company to support the British investments and to support the British partnership with either African companies or with Swedish or with Egyptian companies. Thank you.
Ahmed, thank you very much indeed for that. I think what you've succeeded in demonstrating there is how important it is to create the successful business for the future, to be about thinking harder, and the knowledge environment. It's sort of basically the knowledge economy in terms of training people that you've emphasised. And certainly, you know, my own experience with sort of the teams at Vodafone in Egypt over many years, there was the potential of a great workforce in Egypt. You can probably correct me wrong, but I think Egypt produces something like 300,000 university graduates every year, which is part of an available workforce. But the critical thing is it's the quality of those that come out. And I think you're working with Coventry and raising standards I mean, that's a good one. I know I've heard from the guys at Coventry how pleased they are with the progress they've made with you. But as president and CEO, you must face really difficult decisions a lot of the time. But you've managed to take Al Saudi Electric into a lot of successful bids in Africa, whether it's on your own or working with other people. And as a company in Egypt, looking at the rest of Africa, how do you approach that business development? I mean, how do you find the leads? How do you find, do you have people on the ground that go out to, I mean, we touched yesterday on the thing about Ghana as one of the countries, and I sort of looked up you know, it doesn't just happen. People don't come and knock on your door. I mean, you have to go and find these things. So how do you approach it as Al Saudi Electric?
Thank you for this. By the way, we're working also a lot in Libya. We have now over 1,000 people living in Iraq. We have very good presence in Sudan. So the point that really in most of the countries in Africa, we don't go and tell them, I want to sell for you a cable or transformer. No, we go, we set operation there. We put one of our guys in Africa. We have now almost a country manager in each country in Africa, country manager. And this country manager, we are supporting him a lot from Egypt. And he go to the country, he go to the government, telling them, we as an African company, Sweden Electric, we are happy to see how can we help you, how we can support you, how we can benefit from our presence there. So we see what is their priorities. If these priorities in electricity, we try to solve them this, either by supplying them with components, either by engineering, either by installation, either by financing even. So at the end, we tell them, what is your priority? And we try to solve and to do whatever they want. At the end, really, one of our main targets, that people have better living. And you cannot have better living without better infrastructure, better electricity, have water, have sewage, and so on. And this is one of our main jobs, beside the fiber optics, beside the technology, digitalization, and so on.
Okay. Would it be fair to interpret what you're saying there as being you have to think about the long term? This is not just do a quick deal and get out. Would that be correct?
It is really long term. Yeah, you are right, 100%. Yani, example, we have been in Sudan since now over 20 years. It's long term. When we go to each countries, we go to stay. Ghana the same, Zambia the same, Nigeria, and so on. So whenever we go to any country, we know we have to recruit locals. Locals have to be part of our group. And we have to put some also foreigners, not a lot, less than 10%, but over 9% to be locals. Because the locals in each country, they are really the energy of the country, energy of the company.
Yeah.
And we go to stay, not even just to make a deal and to leave. Yeah.
Look, thank you for that. I mean, it echoes my own views. I'd be interested to pose a question on this to Emma, if I may, because from a DIT point of view, clearly you've got all the big macro issues, but in terms of messages that you can send back from a very big region with great opportunities back to your colleagues in the UK who are advising businesses, I mean, will the DIT engage in things like, hey guys, if you want to develop your business, these are the sorts of things you have to do? Because I'm challenging on this one, because one of the things I hear when I travel around, and I don't know if Ahmed would agree with me, but you quite often hear, well, where are the Brits? And I think I'm sure you must have heard that yourself. So is that something that we're addressing from a UK Gov point of view?
I certainly hope so, Ian. That's what I wake up in the morning to do specifically, is to address that sort of the missing Brit question, because actually what we find is there are a lot of British companies operating all across Africa, including in Libya and Sudan and stuff, as Ahmed was mentioning. But often they're not necessarily badged as British, or they're part of a consortium, so they're a British element to a wider international consortium, or they are an international company with a British element to them. So the Britishness can sometimes get lost, if you like, and that's not always a bad thing. I think the key thing, frankly, is that we've got great companies with great products and services partnering with terrific African companies to make progress, whether that's in infrastructure or agriculture or financial services or anything, any of those aspects of the economy. And so, one of the things that we have been doing, as I mentioned earlier, was we've been reinforcing our market entry team to really provide good advice to companies. We say to them, the key to success in Africa is strategic patience. You don't come to Africa thinking you're going to pop in one day, you land a deal and then bugger off the next day. Actually, this is about how you invest for the long term, and part of that is about what we see UK companies doing. As Ahmed has explained there with his company, you find local talent and you invest in local talent and you build the company together, and I think that is really important. Investing in local communities as well, so that you're creating the talent pipeline for the future. So there's plenty of stuff to do, and lots of stuff going on. And I genuinely think that partnering together, finding each other in amongst all the many hundreds of thousands of companies is part of what I think we try to do, is understand what's going on the ground in all of the markets where we have a presence, to be able to say, look, here are some fantastic companies operating in the same sector as you. We know them. We've done some work with them before, and go meet them. Have a chance to talk to them and see if it's the kind of connection, the meeting of minds, the vision, the shared approach to how you do business that companies are looking for.
Thank you. Okay, well, there are some questions coming up, but we are regrettably out of time. So if I could just finish with two last things. Emma, a couple of the questions were, where do we find out a little bit more either about the regulations, or you mentioned UKEF opening up in Cairo. Would you just like to repeat where it is people make the inquiry? And I'm coming to you with one last really difficult question, Ahmed. So there are. But Emma, would you like to sort of do your advertising and tell people?
Absolutely. Thank you. That is a very easy question to answer. Very simple. So it's dit.africa@fcdo.gov.uk, and I will also put it in the Q&A bar as well, so people can see that. Thank you.
That would be great. Look, thank you very much indeed for that. Now, Ahmed, one question which came up, and I promise you, this was not my question, but it was, will you consider manufacturing in the UK? And I didn't prompt them to ask this question. So, I mean, you went and bought a business in Slovenia. You've become a world leader in smart metering. So, do you have any ambitions to buy something or expand in or develop manufacturing in the UK?
Of course, working in the UK is really an honor, and it's really, of course, it's a great country. Of course, it's not me that I will speak about UK, but if you tell me about the investments, I would love to see that if we invest, example, in cable business in UK, I think this would be very costly, and we will not be able to compete, let's say, with the Turkish, with the Egyptians, with the Chinese. But if we'd love to invest in UK, we can invest in the same sector like the smart metering, which is the less labor, more technology, more digital, which will keep us very near our customers. So we are willing, we are happy to invest in UK, but in other products than the traditional ones. Thank you.
Thank you.
We should talk. I can help you with that.
Well, I was hoping that someone will be able to pick this up, and if we can create some more connections. So look, can I say? Well, look, it's a big thank you to all of those who have spoken this morning, but in particular to, and I'm going to make sure I get the titles absolutely right, Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Africa from the Department of Trade. So Emma, thank you very much for participating today. Thank you for that. And as President and CEO of Saudi Electric, Ahmed, thank you for your contribution as well, and also for and your website. I do recommend Saudi Electric website for people to look at to see what you're doing, because you do keep emphasizing so strongly the sustainability need for businesses going forward, and I think you've demonstrated that today. So look, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you to all of those who have been listening in, either today or a little bit later or whatever. Sorry not to get to any more questions, but thank you again for this morning. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.